Hello everyone, my name is Preston Paris, and today I'm making my first annual beliefs video. This version is the 2026 version, and I'm very excited to bring it to you. I'm aiming for a transparent documentation of my views and opinion changes. I'm mainly going to be talking about politics, but I'll include some of my other beliefs in this video as well. I'm very conservative leaning, so I prefer Republicans generally. I actually grew up liberal and didn't start investigating conservative content until around age 16 to 17. So the Democratic Party just fully lost me, if you will. At this point, I mostly just think it's a party of victimhood. And so I don't have 30 minutes to burn, so I'll just say that besides the healthcare issue, I really don't see eye to eye with Democrats on anything. That said, the Republican Party has its own issues. One, they have a huge issue with winning presidential elections in particular. Charlie Kirk did excellent work in his lifetime, but Turning Point shouldn't be completely outclassing the RNC. Two, there's this massive Israel bias that needs to be called out firstly, and then eradicated. We are Americans, not Israelis, so if you want to be pro-America and America first, you need to prioritize this country, the United States of America. Three, Republicans need to stop abandoning big cities. Charlie Kirk also talked about this extensively, so you can see how he heavily impacted me on my political journey. It's easy to talk about how bad LA is, but it shouldn't take a Zoran Mamdani scare to get you back raising money for big cities again. Start building up a cash reserve and a political presence again. 4, there are too many rhinos. When I hear that a Republican is voting for sex change surgery for minors, I get very aggravated because it just shouldn't happen. Hold conservative positions even when it's inconvenient to do so for the sake of the constituents. I have a lot of issues with the way politics are done in this country. A, there's too much money. Massive companies and foreign entities shouldn't be able to swoop in and buy political candidates. I think hard funding caps should be implemented. Think $5,000 or $7,500 per corporate entity. Most of the millions of dollars spent on political campaigns are on low quality advertisements that are designed to mislead the electorate. If less money overall in politics means more on the ground work and less voters, fine, so be it. We should prefer a good president rather than just the guy who was able to raise $1 billion. As an aside, any pro-other country PAC that is not registered under FARA should do so immediately. This means APAC, amongst others. This really shouldn't even be necessary, but we're in such a tough spot right now with foreign influence that I believe we really need to implement this. B, there are far too many inactivity, cheating, and delay tactics in politics right now. Gerrymandering needs to be banned. Stop redrawing the congressional maps. Pocket vetoes need to be banned. Just make a decision. Filibusters need to be banned. 10 minutes tops. No one's actually saying anything profound anymore. There needs to be a strict schedule on funding legislation and other important legislation. Stop dragging your feet and wasting time. Also, the government should never be shut down. C, there is far too much disloyalty. Swearing in on the Quran or any other religious document that is not named the Bible should be banned outright. This is a Christian nation founded on Christian beliefs. Dual citizenship while in office should be suspended or terminated outright. You are a politician in the United States of America. If you want to run for office in Spain, go pack your bags and move there. By the way, I say this as someone who is a dual citizen of the United Kingdom, something I retain so I can go visit my aging mother eventually. However, if I was ever tasked with renouncing my dual citizenship, I would do so immediately. And get this, I'm not even a congressman, and I can do that in a heartbeat. So really, every single politician in the United States should be able to do this with no issue, right? So let's implement it. In terms of religion, I'm an aspiring Catholic, planning to enroll in RCIA in the fall. And on paper, I am a Christian nationalist. Yes, we have the freedom of religion, but I believe everyone should become Christian and actively seek salvation. I derive my sense of morality from the Bible, because if you don't do that, I believe that morality evolves into utilitarianism, which is not good on a large scale. I'm actively trying to become more religious, and I'm excited to become a strongly Catholic husband, father, and productive member of society. Let's talk about other religions and philosophies. I believe in a God. Therefore, atheism and agnosticism are idiotic or incomplete. Do not tell me that the universe was created in a Big Bang if you cannot explain where the first elements came from. And no, we do not need to explain the origin of God because of that logic. God is not a chemical or a scientific construct. Any philosophy that isn't directly derived from Christianity, actually. There is only one God, not two, not nine. We also aren't that one God, nor is the universe. Islam is very bad for America, and the sheer existence of Sharia law undermines the fabric of this very nation. Jesus is Lord. So while I believe in supporting Jews due to biblical requirements, I do not support Judaism at all. I actually think the Judeo-Christian term is a complete oxymoron. I haven't been baptized in a Catholic church yet, so I won't talk too much about other denominations, right? However, I will say that I fully embrace the teachings and ideas present in all of the Catholic doctrine. Amongst many other responsibilities, the Bible tasks us with marriage and parenthood. Now, on the subject of these two, I think everyone should be encouraged to get married and have children as soon as possible. In that order, don't have kids before marriage, ideally. Now, not everyone is suitable for doing these things. However, it should be encouraged in the same way that following the law is typically encouraged. Marriage and parenthood are objectively necessary for a well-ordered society and are objectively good and helpful for most people, assuming you do it at least remotely correctly, which would be based on biblical principles. Marriage is especially helpful for men in my view, but both men and women should aim for it. By extension, being married at 18 is not taboo. It's actually usually an accomplishment. Birthing children is the biggest responsibility for women. Providing for children is the biggest responsibility for men. When marriage and birth rates fall, society suffers, as is being shown evident literally as I am speaking this. However, I am not opposed to limiting marriage to straight Christian couples. I don't have this opinion just yet because I haven't given it all the necessary thought, but I'm not completely against it. Truth be told, I'll probably develop the belief. I think the vast majority of our issues stem from bad parents. This is including but not limited to promiscuity, abortion, and crime. Many children are being born into poverty. Now, this isn't to say that you shouldn't have kids if you are poor. However, everyone should aim to raise children in a unified household with a mother and a father. This is a good step in reducing your chances of poverty, or at least reducing the amount of poverty that you are in. When teachers and schools start becoming the parent, you have a big parenting problem. Terrible ideologies become socially acceptable when the family starts getting broken down. I also believe in a correlation between LGBT youth identification and bad parents and or abuse. I can't overstate how much of an issue parenting is, which is why I'm in favor of stricter penalties against child abuse and child neglect. The family is an essential American unit, so causing familial issues should be treated like the serious transgression that it is. I want to discuss the criteria for a good parent. As a Christian, I believe a good parent baptizes their child or infant as early as possible and introduces Christianity as early as possible. If not, they must introduce a strong moral code that stands the test of time. But really, you should just be introducing Christianity, because that is the strongest moral code. Children deserve to be well provided for financially and emotionally, and taught the skills that they need in the real world. This means things like reading, financial literacy, honesty, and respect. It's a parent's job to protect their child from pornography, bad ideologies, and terrible people. Parenting isn't easy though, so if you are already doing a good job, then congratulations! You have succeeded in one of the most rewarding tasks that God has given humanity. It is important that you promote and encourage parenting, especially around children. I find that parents who mostly complain about their job or say things like, just wait till you have kids and this bad thing will happen, are bad actors who should be called out. This language taints the image of child rearing and deters the youth and future generations from having children. I'm newly an abortion abolitionist. Initially, I was pro-life, but then I realized that 6-week bills and similar legislation are not enough, and the entire institution has to be criminalized and done away with. I'm not in favor of arresting mothers who are trying to seek abortion due to the amount of misinformation and social pressure that exists, but I am fully in favor of adding this option in the future as we start to get rid of abortion. My reasoning for this is quite simple. Life begins at conception. Thou shalt not kill, and ectopic pregnancy removal is not an abortion. I do feel very, very angry about the state of this issue though. I can't even speak freely and openly because of the community guidelines. But what I will mention is that Black women by rate have the most amount of abortions out of all of the racial demographics. Not only that, but Black people mostly support abortion. These are all bad things. Terrible things, actually. We need to get rid of abortion now and start advocating for the unborn as soon as possible. With abortion gone, we can start regulating IVF. I'm not saying we should do away with IVF, but we should not be throwing conceived humans in the trash can. This section is about the LGBT community. I want to preface this section by saying that the Bible orders us to love thy neighbor. And I try to love people according to this. That said, the LGBT acronym has issues with every single letter past B. Not the people, but the philosophy. Firstly, LGB. Now, B is fairly inoffensive besides the L and the G parts. Now, the Bible explicitly disallows any sexual acts between same-sex couples or really any premarital couple at all. You cannot do it. That said, it's not a sin to be lesbian or gay. This means that I love lesbian and gay people, the people themselves, but I don't support the acts that they are likely to commit. I also stopped supporting gay marriage. Marriage is a biblical institution. I don't know how to describe my thoughts on T onwards without getting flagged for community guidelines. So what I'll say on this is there are two sexes, obviously, and there are two genders, Obviously. If anyone wants to present differently, I think they should be able to do that as an adult. However, I don't support pronouns for high school downward. I don't support children getting sex change surgeries or hormones. I'm fine with adult surgeries at 21 or 25. My beliefs are relevant in sports, prisons, and other sex-specific spaces. Sexual orientations should not be kept between a student and a teacher, which means that parents should be told. If a student genuinely feels unsafe outing themselves as LGBT, CPS should be involved. This is because child abuse is a crime, as we know. I will note though, not supporting your child's sexual orientation, if you're not taking your kid to go get a sex change surgery, that is not child abuse. If you're not encouraging your child to be gay, no, that is not child abuse. You should love your child regardless of their orientation, but that doesn't mean you should encourage. I do not agree with intersex being considered a sexual orientation, but if it makes people feel better, it's technically inoffensive. Men and women are equal in that they are both created in the image of God. However, modern feminism is quite bad for society. It's one of many movements that sow division between men and women and break down the family. The non-biblical rendition of the Red Pill movement is another one of those movements. This Red Pill movement that ignores the Bible is the single most dangerous ideology for young men right now. If you are struggling with your masculinity, go read your Bible. Pornography should be illegal outright. It is very harmful to the producers and the consumers, and there are lots of terrible things that happen in the industry. Start with age verification and phase it out. Small children are being exposed to it as well, which is terrible. I really like James Fishback's idea of a sin tax on OnlyFans revenue. Really, DC should adopt the idea of a sin tax on a lot of things, to be honest. Let's talk about crime. Firstly, I support the death penalty. Life for life is biblical. This means we should start with the death penalty for murderers, and then we should expand the penalty to go for serial rapists. I support harsher penalties for harsher crimes. And no, this does not target Black people. A demographic committing more crimes than another demographic is a statistic that has repercussions. I'm mostly looking for harsher punishments for crimes involving mass violence, children, and sex. We could do with harsher penalties for stealing, so we don't have to lock up a bunch of merchandise and punish the consumer. Releasing serial offenders on bail should be criminalized. Judges should be among the people on the hook when there's an egregious release on the streets. Not everyone deserves bail. In short, reduce the prison population by making people less gung-ho to commit crimes, but keep the people in there that will not learn. On the other hand, I don't support legalizing marijuana, but small possession should not be punished very heavily, maybe a fine. Hard drugs should remain illegal and punishable, but there should be more resources for addicts. Addiction is not a crime. Police-wise, Blue Lives Matter. We should not defund the police. Rather, we should back the blue financially. I believe in respecting law enforcement, including ICE. Less people would get shot and injured if it wasn't so trendy to attack law enforcement. I consider climate change to be a non-urgent issue. It's definitely real based on the data, but there shouldn't be any policy on the back of that. I support embracing oil and nuclear power. That said, lots of oil companies get big tax breaks in this country. So if renewables, solar, or EVs start bringing in equal value for the country, they should definitely get those tax breaks. I believe in full school choice, including outside your district. Critics of school choice have argued that it would take money away from public schools, which I believe emphasizes the need for school choice. Equal opportunity is for people, not schools. Schools should compete to improve, but a lot of them do not. I disagree with any form of mass surveillance on Americans. The government should never receive data that it did not obtain through legal means due to a criminal investigation. Data broking as an industry should be gutted by about 90%. The maximum amount of information sold should be demographics and interests. Attaching your name, phone, age, or personal information should be illegal. It also needs to be taxed heavily because it's mainly big corporations profiteering from selling American information. I do agree that big tech has a lot of power, but I still want the United States of America to retain technological dominance. Therefore, beyond current antitrust laws, I don't believe that we need new ones. I support AI to the extent that it isn't pilfering human presence in industries like farming, trucking, etc. I support hard limits on the amount of jobs you can let AI do in your company. No AI only or AI mostly companies. American companies need Americans in them. Beyond current credit score monitoring, fraud detection, and social credit style systems, we do not need any more monitoring systems. I fully support digital currency and actively endorse decentralized platforms like Bitcoin. Everyone ought to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum ASAP. I'm going to make some comments on various cultural issues here. I believe in traditional gender roles. This usually refers to a system where mom stays at home with the kids and dad goes out and goes to work, which is fine, but not best. The best system is a homestead system, which has the parents, the children, and any extended family all contributing to one place of work. The idea of the husband being a supreme leader while the wife is a controlled subordinate is completely incorrect. For guidance on marriage principles, please read your Bible. We need much more patriotism in America, and the lack of respect for the country amongst native-born and foreign-born people is a big issue. Black lives matter and all lives matter. You can say either one, but both are true. All people are created in the image of God, regardless of race. Mainstream news is largely untrustworthy. This includes the right and the left-leaning sources. This is because of the agendas on both sides. The October surprise is one step away from being scheduled propaganda. I do not support gambling, although I don't think it should be banned. By extension, stop promoting platforms like RainBet unless you are hard pressed for cash. Cryptocurrency is a tool used to diversify your portfolio. Therefore, the mainstream currencies are not gambles. That said, meme coins are a complete gamble. I believe we should support veterans much more, but I do not support mandatory service as of right now. If relations with China deteriorate, then this might have to change though. Until then, our current draft system is fine. I believe in small government, especially for the federal government, but with exceptions for critical issues. The federal government already manages national security, federal agencies, taxes, the military, etc. In general though, I believe we should shrink agencies where they waste money, and we should abolish the Department of Education. That money should go to the states. On the other hand, I'm a very strong proponent of public safety, which is one of the issues I believe the government should get more hands-on with. Issues like porn, food, vaccines, and illegal immigration are amongst nationwide public safety issues that need to be immediately addressed. This may seem to contradict my position on small government, but I believe that the federal government should enforce moral guidelines, as well as constitutional and public safety ones. States should dictate local preferences and implementations within that. Industry regulation is fine in instances where Americans are being screwed over. Other than that, our companies need to be big and strong in order to boost our economy. America relies on free and fair elections. This means voter ID mandates. Mail-ins and early voting is fine if you live here and you have an ID. Any attempted loosening of voter ID requirements is an attack on the sovereignty of the United States of America, which should be treated like treason. As highlighted in the Constitution, states should have the rest of the power that the federal government doesn't. They should focus on schools, improving the economy, etc., while remaining constitutional. I'm a constitutional originalist. This can be tough in practice, but the living constitution idea allows for new ideas to be added that were never in the Constitution in the first place. Such ideas should be proposed through the legislature. I'm almost a free speech absolutist. I say almost because I do not support flag burning on the grounds of improving patriotism. Cancel culture and internet accountability are a farce. No one should be losing their job over social media opinions. Social media platforms should also be open to all opinions. Granted, everyone needs to follow the law, which includes threats, defamation, libel, etc. On that note though, if someone says, I think you're a Mossad agent, and you take offense to that because you're not, that's your problem, and any lawsuit stemming from that is frivolous. If someone says they hate black people, that stance is immoral, but they should be allowed to say that. These are forms of expression that are not causing imminent harm to people. If you feel attacked by speech that is not coming from your family, that is your issue. I fully support the Second Amendment. Everyone has a right to self-defense. That said, as is written in federal law, if you're not fully mentally there, you should not be able to buy a gun. Felons should not be able to either, but I'm actually open to letting the less violent ones own guns. Naturally, I believe that every red flag law is unconstitutional. This is a tricky position though, because some of them are well written. That said, threats are illegal, so confiscation on those grounds can be written into those laws. On the subject of taking your own, that isn't the state's job to swoop in and stop you from doing that, regardless of how sad the issue is. The point is, no more red flag laws, and extract the good legislation from the ones that currently exist while remaining constitutional. Judicial review exists for a reason, so the Supreme Court should be able to strike down any law that is unconstitutional. That said, the Supreme Court isn't infallible, so any ruling that is by the Supreme Court unconstitutional, appealing that and ignoring that temporarily is fine. I think the amount of members on the Supreme Court is fine as is, but there should be 8 to 12-year term limits. When judges start dying on the bench waiting for their party to win a presidential election, you have a term limits issue. I believe in reducing spending overall, but we should prioritize good causes. More defense, military pay, healthcare, and American people funding. Less corporate bailouts, foreign aid, and random stuff. I believe in mostly phasing out Social Security in favor of private retirement. Individuals who want to fund their stuff through the government can do that, but no more spiraling system. Granted, if the government proposes a system that stops those spiraling costs, I'll advocate for that. If there are much better spending habits in government, I don't mind slightly higher taxes on higher income individuals. I strongly support capitalism. Communism and Marxism are a cancer to America. The fact that these are becoming attractive to young people shows that we are in dire straits. Democratic socialism is the same thing with a different name and different implementation. On the subject of tax breaks, no company should just be able to lobby for them. If the company isn't providing a tremendous benefit to the American people, then they should not receive that tax break. Public health is integral to American success, but it's not talked about enough. American exceptionalism hinges on American people's lives. Americans deserve longer life expectancies and wellness. The government should encourage policies that support that. Now again, it's not the job of the state to swoop in and save your life, right? So I don't support banning cigarettes, for example. That is too much control. In places where the state shouldn't have power, people should demonstrate and promote healthy habits. This means eating healthy, exercising, getting good sleep, and visiting the doctor when needed. Also, reduce the amount of poison that enters your body. Alcohol is poison. That said, we do not know the full effects of most vaccines, so I support extreme skepticism around them. Americans should not be treated like test patients. This means vaccine mandates should be illegal. Healthcare is interesting because it's the only issue where I side with Democrats on. To a degree, let's not pretend like every policy or every bill that Democrats put forward regarding healthcare is good or something. I support a robust public healthcare system, but private healthcare should be encouraged. Medical costs are far too high, and a lot of healthcare companies have been hamstringing Americans. To combat this, I support price fixing for medicine and hospital expenses. Hospitals are guilty of a lot of fraudulent charging to the point where people just let these healthcare bills pile up. There's this technique where if you ask for an itemized bill, your costs go down, which is insane that exists. Any non-transparent upcharge should be illegal. Also, nurses should never be sales reps. Any unnecessary testing should be done for cheap, and harassing patients for expensive testing should be illegal. It should be like a menu. You always know what you're paying for and what insurance covers and doesn't cover. I strongly oppose large companies vacuuming up large portions of housing. The government isn't required to give you a free home, but I do support public housing. This means that you are paying a percentage to live somewhere, but you aren't getting walloped by skyrocketing costs. The insurance industry needs lots of regulation. For every single expense, insurance companies need to formally express whether or not they'll cover it and to what extent. From there, insurance not providing that coverage or dropping you where they said they'll cover you should be illegal. Besides, say, car insurance removing you because you keep wrecking, insurance companies shouldn't be refusing coverage for the very thing that you pay for, which is to be insured. Our current disabled and elderly care system is poor. So while I'm in favor of cutting Social Security, a lot of that money should be funneled into resources for old and disabled people. This might sound like doing the same thing under a different name, but not every old and disabled person relies on the same resources from the government. I support unions to a degree. Advocating for higher pay and better conditions is one thing, but if that turns into lobbying, you need to register as a lobby. I support the right to work because no one should be required to join a union if they don't want to. I think Uber drivers and all these jobs where you have a bunch of requirements and rules on job are employees, not freelancers. Federal workers should be paid during shutdowns, although politicians should not. I think the federal minimum wage should be increased. Next to no one is getting $7.25 per hour, so it should be not a huge problem to increase that. I support workers' rights. For example, there should be a federal heat standard. No more heat strokes. We also need robust child labor laws. Anything past 9 p.m. should require extra compensation. Most children should be in school, but the economy is so bad that they've been extracted from their homes and forced into E-tier establishments. Also, companies should be responsible for labor law violations on a local scale. Respect American workers. Most of the food on our shelves is bad or low quality. Eating really healthy can be really expensive, which is a dastardly fact. I wouldn't mind the government allocating more money and grants for farmers to increase the quality of our food through things like wild-caught salmon and grass-fed beef, for example. The rise of artificial meat and food is completely disturbing. Bioengineered meat should be illegal, and so should genetically modified produce. Also, there's no such thing as a vegan burger. No one should be forced or encouraged to be vegan. Humans should actually be eating animal protein regularly. Farm animals do not have a right to avoid slaughter. Animal conditions should be improved for the sake of improving the food quality, and for the same reason you should implement humane slaughter. Although I don't really think there's a humane way to slaughter anyone. I heavily oppose illegal immigration and support mass deportations. We should slightly reduce legal immigration, but we should gut the wait times. There are good people with good value waiting to enter the United States, and we should get them over here. For the same reason, I'm not in favor of an immigration pause. We need to have way less H-1Bs though. Immigration should be allowed to the extent that the American-born worker is seriously preferred and America is being improved. America needs to remain an English-speaking Christian nation. For the most part, immigration counteracts this. I support birthright citizenship, but I recognize that when the border is unsecure, this becomes problematic. Naturally, we need to keep immigration restriction among our top issues. And I believe if we do this, birthright citizenship becomes mostly a non-issue. Foreign policy is tough to decide, but I think that the United States should be mostly isolationist and avoid starting wars. Now, this can be tough to implement in practice, so I want to provide a framework that I use for judging foreign policy decisions. Priority 1 is reducing casualties. People will die in war, but life is valuable and we need to protect it. 2, regime changes are largely unnecessary and a waste of resources. 3, we have a duty to adhere to treaties and our NATO responsibilities. 4, any non-NATO intervention should be directly beneficial to the United States or should be some drastic action to restore global order. Without going over all the regime changes, think Afghanistan. Stopping terrorism is fine, but we spent like 20 years over there and the women there, to my knowledge, cannot go to school. I did not like the Venezuela takeover at first, but it didn't end in disaster. We shouldn't steal their oil or anything, but if overhead is cheap, we should get a new president in there and leave ASAP. We definitely don't need any regime change in the country of Iran. We should not have supported Israel's ethnic cleansing in Gaza. We should give Ukraine limited money, but stop if they are absolutely not going to give away any of their territory. They're probably not going to do that. But unless soldiers march on Kiev, that is not our problem. I'm fine with spying on countries that we need to monitor, not named the United States. We should limit cyber attacks, but we should have plenty of options on the cards. On the other hand, while I believe we should work towards a good working relationship with China, we should be able to win any war with them at any point in time. This includes a trade war, which is why I support Chinese decoupling, and we need that urgently. If I had to guess the most likely trigger for World War II, it would be the Taiwan issue. I think we should handle that issue with very serious restraint. However, I do not have a handy and easy solution on hand. Sorry guys. Labels are fascinating, so I want to clarify what I am and what I'm not. I'm an aspiring Catholic, father, husband, and businessman, a black man, a conservative, a Christian nationalist, and a capitalist. I am not a libertarian because I think that certain expressions like porn should be banned, amongst other ideological differences. I am not a part of MAGA because I think subscribing to a particular president's group is very bad practice. I am not a Republican because I have not run for office while representing the Republican Party. I'm obviously not a liberal, and I'm very far from it if you've watched the full contents of this video. I do not consider myself transphobic, homophobic, bigoted, or racist or any other term that says I hate another group. I don't hate any group, but free speech dictates that you can call me what you will. I own my own opinions, and I've developed these through faith, experience, intellect, and research. I may identify with certain groups, but before that, I am an individual man created in the image of God. I consider all my beliefs to be correct, but I've highlighted areas that I'm thinking more about or reconsidering. If I felt like one of my beliefs was incorrect, I would not hold that belief. That said, I'm open to discussion and I enjoy talking about politics, so feel free to DM me about anything you want to speak to me about. Just be respectful. In the future, I like to go out and discuss and debate instead of text, but my debate skills need practice and no one is texting my political accounts as of right now. If you watched this full video, I'd like to express tremendous gratitude for listening to me talk for that long. This video was a doozy to record. Really, if you stopped by at all, I would like to thank you. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and leave a comment of your thoughts, regardless of if you liked or disliked the video. Feel free to share the video with any of your peers. I should see you all hopefully soon. God bless you all, and God bless America.